and welcome to Catacris Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.catacris.com. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. We're speaking with best-selling author Elise Krentzel. We're going to be talking to Elise about her book, Under My Skin, and a whole bunch of other fun topics. Now, I had real fun reading the book, Elise, and I think where I'd like to start the interview off, if you could share, I was reading that it's part of a trilogy. So is this the first book that you've written in regards to this trilogy?
Yes, it is.
And so what are the other books going to be about? Do you know yet, or can we talk about that?
Oh, yeah, I do know. I just don't know when they'll be released.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on chapter 5 of the second book, and basically it's a trilogy of my life. Now, wait, don't everybody go thinking that's totally egotistical.
No.
To write 3 books about your life, but my life has been like an experiment of kind of a mad scientist.
Yeah.
So a lot of the experiences, which are packed in, as you know, from reading book 1,
Yeah.
they continue throughout my life until I finally find some peace of mind in my 50s.
Oh,
so
that's...
it took,
wow.
You know, it took all that time. But book 2 is going to be much more heavy duty in terms of the psychology and the betrayal and the mess ups with different men and divorces and traveling all over and living in Europe and alienation. So I hope, tells you about.
Definitely something to look forward. I can tell people just from reading the first book. I initially got the book because I'm a Kiss fan myself, and I kind of wanted to read up on, the Japanese tour that we're going to talk a little bit about. The Kiss did back in 1977 that you got to take part in, but. That's just one chapter. There's so much more to the book. I mean, for example, in prepping for the interview today, one thing that kind of jumped out to me was the chapter about you wanting to be a rock journalist, and the fact you start the chapter off saying something to the effect that, I knew that I wasn't ready to have an article appear in Circus magazine, or I was gonna, if that's my goal, I have to kind of take certain steps. And let me tell you, that right back took me back to my younger days, because back in the day, Circus magazine was like, if you're a hard rock fan, or any kind of rock fan, that was like the rock magazine of the day. And so talk a little bit about that and tell us, did you ever get anything published in Circus magazine?
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate the question because, of course, there's a lot of chapters on Kiss. And like four of the 12 chapters, about a quarter of the book. But the point being that, yes, I knew I wanted to be a rock journalist because I could merge both my love of music, I also played guitar,
wow,
and writing.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like a lot of the journalists back in those days, walking Wikipedias, like I knew every single band member, where they hailed from, what band they went into, what was their instrument. You could tell from the riffs, exactly who was who.
Yeah.
And what Circus magazine, as you correctly pointed out, was one of the leading magazines of its day. There was also Rolling Stone and Cream. Yeah. Only Rolling Stone exists today.
Very sad, yeah.
Yeah, it is sad. Anyway, so I'm in high school. I'm 16 years old. I had a strategy of, okay, this is what I'll do. I'll go to rock concerts. And, 16 years old, you're thinking, what?
Yeah.
But I used to sneak out of my mother's house and sort of hitchhike, right?
Yeah.
Into the city, into New York City from Long Island, like the sticks, really being out in suburban wasteland, and would go to concerts. And so I figured, how am I going to cut my teeth? I'll either write record reviews, so every time I bought an album, I would write a review. Every time I went to a concert, I would do a concert review. And I would go to these clubs and hang out. I had a lot of friends in the city. And we would go to the clubs like CBGB and Max's Kansas City and the Mud Club, and I would overhear conversations. And then I would write a little, sprinkling of what I overheard. Anyway, it took about a year and a half to 2 years till I finally got my first article published in Circus. And yes, that was a great day. It was sort of like I felt, wow, I arrived.
Yeah,
it was hard work.
I could imagine. And what I really dig about that story is, you know, so many people have these dreams, but then they never do anything about it. Like you said, well, before you can even get something published in Circus magazine, you got to write the article. You got to take the time to drop it in the mailbox, you know. Some people don't even take those first two steps. So, you know, mission accomplished. Way to go.
Thank you. And that as a reminder to people that, you know, what we read about, what we watch on TV, all the media, at least in America, everything is about a quick fix.
Oh, yeah.
And it's can I say certain words on that?
Sure, we're on the internet, so you feel free to speak your mind.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Life isn't like that. Life happens, like John Lennon said, excuse me, while you're busy making other plans. So, while you're busy making other plans and dreaming, put your dreams into action.
Yeah.
And that's the hard work. So if you think, like, what is success? I don't mean monetarily.
Yeah.
I mean, what is success to you?
Yeah, I hear you.
Success to me was to achieve that goal. And to achieve that goal, it's not just going to be handed to you on a silver platter. You have to work for it.
Yeah. Like anything in life, you know, if you don't work hard for it, it's not going to mean anything. Even if you happen to get extremely lucky and have something fall into your lap, that's something really rare. And that's why I love hearing stories by people like you, because, you know, even doing what I do and interviewing these bands and stuff, you know, that's part of the reason I post the stuff on the internet. It's a way to get your voice out there, a way to get, you know, and I do it. I don't get paid for it, like you're saying, but I do it for my love of music and just spread the word about the music I love. And you'd be amazed at how many great contacts I've made just doing that, how many friends I've made even just over the internet talking about the music I love. It's amazing, you know, but you got to...
Yeah, that's exactly it, Jason. I mean, you have to do what you love. Now, I'm not the poster child for that completely, to be honest, because there were many years in between that I did a lot of things I didn't want to do, or I was lost. I didn't know, you know, how do I get back to me, to my core, you know, to the things that I love. I just was lost, and I think that happens to a lot of us because we're inundated, like I was saying earlier, not only with media, but with what society tells you have to do. Or, you know,
like that. You know, like in reading the book, you know, that's one thing I get is, you know, this up and down roller coaster journey that we call life that you've gone through. And the one thing I'm left after reading the entire book with is the fact that no matter how hard it got, you never gave up, you know, and I think there's a lesson to be learned there.
Well, you know, we talk like what's hard, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has. Okay. So growing up, I used to feel very alienated, and also, I can honestly say, jealous of other people who had good family lives, right? Who had nice home lives. And I would always be in that mindset of why me, you know, which now I can understand is victim, right? Victimhood.
Yeah.
But I was really into that why me? Why is this happening to me? Why do these things keep happening to me? I guess now I could look back with some objectivity, which is what enabled me to write this book in the first place.
Yeah.
And I can say, I think my life and the struggles that I've been through and the pain and the sorrow had to do with coming to terms with all of those particular issues. They wouldn't have been presented to me if I hadn't had to go through them. Does that make sense?
Oh, sure it does. I mean, you know, life is a roll of the dice is kind of what you're saying, and you none of us can really control who our parents are, or, you know, where we live. That's kind of something that you just kind of born into, and you got to learn to kind of deal with it, or you know, accept it, or do something about it.
Yeah, I'm on a little bit of a different mindset now. I used to believe that, Jason.
Yeah.
I really think now that you can control it.
Yeah, I mean,
And I don't mean So that's a funny word. I don't mean control it like you. I mean you can take charge of your own life.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of had similar situations as you know, I was like as a child, I was not a social butterfly. My brother was much more a social person. I mean, I came from a loving family and that, so I was closer with my family members, and I didn't make a lot of friends as a youngster. But you know, even as an adult, I eventually got to the point where I kind of have a belief now that your life is what you make of it. In other words, you know, if you don't have the greatest life, there's things you can do about it. I mean, you can sit there and you can cry about it and do nothing, or you can try to make things better. Go get a job. Try to become independent. Try to do something to make your life a little bit better. You know.
And I say it this way, like, you know, I was very much into that mindset of doing. You know, I got to do something about this.
Yeah.
A real like action taker, and not everybody is.
No.
And you know, I think that what I could say is that whatever you're going through is like, don't run away from it. Go through it.
Oh yeah.
Like, actually go through it. It's like walking through a magic wall.
Yeah.
Go through it. Feel everything about it. Don't deny it. Don't try to get rid of it. Don't try to run away from it. Go through it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you can see as you're going through it.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like, anyway, just don't feel that it's the end, because it really isn't. There's stuff I don't want to give away. That happened to me in the book, where it could have been the end, but it wasn't the end.
Yeah. It's a story of perseverance, and like you said, you're only one book into it. You know, and talking about, you know, Circus magazine, Rolling Stone, which are really great magazines back in the day. I mean, to me, it was really sad when all of a sudden Circus magazine just kind of went away in a fluff, no big announcement. Just one day it was no longer there, and I remember it was just a couple episodes after they'd had a review of like New Kids on the Block. I hate to think that's what put Circus magazine out of publication, but you know what I mean? People started to see they were kind of trying to change what they were, I think, and I don't know if that had anything to do with it. And then Rolling Stone, like you said, is around, but it's not what it used to be. Really a great rock magazine. Now it's much more political. And tries to divide people, and so it's something I don't even really pay attention to anymore. Very much like the Oscars. I don't know if you want to get into that. Like, I wasn't even tuning into it the other night because I hate what it has become. It's not even a show of entertainment. I want to be entertained, and we're talking about it now because Will Smith got up and hit somebody. But even more than that, what I hate is, you know, everybody's cheerleading. Oh, he did it to protect his wife. You know, why didn't security come and get him? That's just kind of my take. I think, like, whoever does something like that, you know, they should have certain consequences. But because it was him, he's being cheerleaded. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with you. First of all, the Oscars for me, it's funny you're mentioning that today.
Yeah.
Just today on LinkedIn, I just wrote something answering somebody's feed saying it's boring, it's passé. There's absolutely no reason in the world I would ever watch that show.
Yeah.
First of all, half the movies I don't even watch.
I'm with you there. I mean,
it's all about streaming services.
Yeah.
If I want to see something, if I want to binge on Netflix or Hulu, that's what I'm going to. Well, not on Hulu, but on, you know, Netflix or something else. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not sitting and waiting around for somewhat archaic jury that's definitely skewed to judge. I'll be the judge of what movies I like. You don't have to judge it for me.
I mean, part of it is they're trying to dictate what we should go see or what we should like. I mean, perfect example of what you're talking about.
Exactly. But that's why it's passé, Jason, because nobody can tell any of us what to see, what to like, what to do.
I mean, perfect example of that. I'm thinking to myself, okay, even with all the movie theaters being closed down for the last 2 years until recently, they say, I heard a quote that the new Spider-Man movie was like the most popular movie, you know, that everybody went to see it, and yet it's not even nominated for any kind of an award, and everybody was going to see that movie. So you tell me. I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's what it is. Look, if you go to the movie theater at all, if you go, and I do admit that I do go from time to time.
To just get out of the house. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But if you do go, it's basically to see comic books. It's Marvel. That's all it is.
Yeah. There should be more things.
Foreign films. I like foreign films.
Yeah, there should be more. The other thing I don't like about it is, not to get political, but I hate the fact that it's turned into a political thing. Like, I don't care if you're for Donald Trump or not, but making, for the last 3 or 4 years, bashing Donald Trump and telling people how they should vote. And when I tune into the Oscars, I want to be entertained. I don't want to hear what you believe politically, or if it's somebody's a bad person because they don't agree with your political view. I don't want to get all these lectures. You know what I mean? I want to hear about the movie you just won an award for, or the movie that I went to see, or I want to hear some music.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. However, it's sad, but this is what's happened in American life.
Yeah.
All across the board. It's not just with the music or movie industry. It's everything, everywhere, and I, like you said, not to get into politics, so we won't. But maybe another time we will.
Well, we can if you want. I'm just saying. That's the main thing I hate about what the Oscars and all these other award shows. It's a night of preaching instead of talking about the movies that are being honored. I don't care what all these people think politically. Tell me about the movie that you are part of or that you're presenting an award for.
Well, anyway,
that's
the movies aren't even representative of what people really
go and see.
Like. So,
yeah. And then another thing that jumped out at me in the book is you mentioned that you very early on becoming a journalist, you met Golden Earring lead singer Barry. Hey, talk a little bit about that experience and how you came to meet him.
Well, okay, I was in Europe, and I was in Europe because of a teen tour, and there's a whole chapter on all of my adventures during that trip, sexual and otherwise.
Yeah.
And when I got back, I got back from that trip, and then the following summer I went back to Europe with one of the boys that I had met on that trip.
Okay.
And that is when I met Barry of Golden Earring when I was back in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Right. And now I still wasn't published, but I thought, wow, I mean, I can interview them. In my mind, I was already a journalist. So, I wasn't published, but that's like, if you're going for the NFL and you're practicing and you're on all these teams, well, you're in it in your mind. So I was already doing it.
Yeah.
And I met them, and it was fantastic because back in those days, of course, so much, and to this day too, so much more liberal in the Netherlands than in America.
Yeah.
And, marijuana was legal back in the early 70s.
Wow.
And prostitution is legal, and they get health care. So all the sex workers get health care.
Yeah.
In other words, they're treated like human beings.
Yeah.
As opposed to here, where they're arresting women or men who are servicing people. Why don't you arrest the people that are paying for it?
Yeah. I hear you. I
mean, that makes no sense.
Yeah. And
it's either,
And so when you're did you at all interview Barry, and like when you're doing so, are you writing it down? You keep it all in your head? How did you?
Well, okay, no. I was writing part of it. Yes, I had notepads.
Yeah.
But it was a tape recorder, with miniature cassettes.
Oh, wow.
A tape recorder.
Wow. Yeah, that's taking us back. And it was Golden Earring back then, especially in Europe, was much bigger than they ever were in the United States. I mean, but even today you hear, that's the one song you hear, Radar Love.
That's it.
Yeah. And did you ever hear when the band White Lion covered that? I was curious what you thought about their cover of that.
I'm sorry, no. Didn't follow it.
And I was noticing that you mentioned that Kiss and Aerosmith opened up for Golden Earring on some tour. Were you surprised that those bands were much bigger than Golden Earring? Or they would go later on. Yeah.
No, because that's what happens. If they were a one-hit wonder and they did their U.S. tour, but they didn't have any other hits in the U.S.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, that's kind of what happened.
And what's
back
interesting,
in those days.
Yeah, what's interesting, even with a band like Golden Earring, there's they still every now and then I read about them touring, and they do get on these kind of one-hit wonder kind of package tours because they have the one song everybody knows. But it's amazing how they're able to kind of still have a career off of that.
Well, I guess because they had a few more hits outside of America.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of it. And another band that you talk a little bit about that I was always a huge fan of, and I never understood why they weren't bigger. They was Moth the Hoople.
Oh, I totally loved Moth the Hoople.
Yeah.
But Moth the Hoople, they were big.
I mean, in Europe, but they never really had a big splash here in the U.S.
No, that's true. But then again, I was hooked on Britpop, old pop, glam rock. I only more or less, 90% of the music I listened to was Brit.
Wow.
Except, an occasional band.
Yeah.
Okay, Talking Heads, the Ramones, Kiss.
Yeah.
A lot of punk.
Yeah.
From the States, but even that followed what was happening in the UK.
Yeah, and then let's get to the Kiss tour of Japan now. The part that jumped out at me in that chapter was where this guy Al Ross contacts you and tells you that you're one of the journalists that's been chosen to go on this tour with Kiss, and initially you tell the guy, you know what, I don't even like the band. I'm going to probably write up a bad review. I'm not really interested. And then he gives you a few days. He goes, you know what? I don't think you write a bad review, but think about it. And then you kind of have changed your mind, and then the part that really kind of jumps out is where you say you finally see the band performing for the first time in Japan, and once they hit the stage, you're part of a synergy, like it's electricity, electric church or something where like you've never felt before. How surprised were you that, this is a different thing live?
Yeah, I was totally awed because it was almost that you were part of the mania of the electricity. You were part of that energy that was so intensely powerful. Because remember, I think at Budokan there's 10,000 seats, not sure, and there are 10,000 screaming fans. And I wrote an article for Record Week, who I was representing at the time, a Canadian magazine. And that's kind of the reason why they brought me on tour, because they were touring Canada after Japan.
Wow.
So imagine this 10,000 screaming, mostly girls.
Yeah.
Unlike in the States, right? Where it was boys or men. 10,000 screaming girls, and you're just part of that electricity. So you cannot help. Imagine at a sports stadium, whether it's football or soccer, you're swept away with that energy.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of relate to what you're saying because not just with music, but I'm not a huge baseball fan. Like, I won't sit and watch it on TV, but my friend took me to a live baseball game. Quite a different experience, you can't help but enjoy it. And I'd imagine being in Japan, a different country, the culture is different. I understand from a lot of people, like the Japanese are very polite people, and it's got to be kind of interesting that you're sitting there and all these people are kind of singing along in Japanese, or even if they don't know the words, they're kind of just enjoying it in the moment.
And they don't get up till the last like one or two songs. They're screaming, but they're sitting politely in their seats.
Yeah, very, very different. And it's kind of interesting because I read in the book it was called the Kiss Budokan Live at Budokan Tour or something, and they're supposed to become a live album now. In 1977 they would release a live too, but what's interesting is it wasn't the Japanese concert; it was concerts filmed at the LA Forum.
Right. I don't know what happened because I don't know what happened, why they didn't release that.
Yeah, and then I was wondering, when you seen them in Japan, did they have an opening act? Because oddly enough, also in 1977, when they were touring America, they had Cheap Trick as one of the opening acts, and Cheap Trick would go on to release Live at Budokan, which was their breakout album.
Right. Yeah. I know, because afterwards, not to give it all away, but I did stay in Japan.
Yeah.
And I introduced a lot of punk rock to the Japanese market and brought Cheap Trick to Japan. So yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I'm a Cheap Trick fan too, and I don't know if you even know this, Elise, but if you go and you listen to the original version of that song, "I Want You to Want Me" off the first Cheap Trick album, it sounds much more like a swampy country song. But with the live version, they did some of that song. They they gave it a new life, I tell you.
Yeah.
And it's just, I was interested in talking about like each of the guys in Kiss. Now that you were kind of talking about Gene wanting to show you his Polaroid collection, which is something he's held on to all these years. And in fact, I saw an episode of his reality show, Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, where his wife kind of found it and she got pissed off and made him burn it. It's just amazing that the guy had it all these years,
He saved it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny.
That's pretty sad, but makes sense. I mean, he's... Yep. All right.
And it's kind of interesting because he's kind of always had that kind of persona where, he thinks a lot of himself. He thinks he's a little ladies' man and this and that. And I guess you kind of had that. You mean
egomaniac, narcissist?
There you go. I gotta tell you though, I think he's a real talented guy. I mean, he's one of my favorite guys in the band. I love it. He breathes the fire. I mean, talk a little bit about that. When you, I'm assuming he did that during the show. And what did you think when you seen that part of the show?
Well, of course, the pyrotechnics are amazing, and the whole theatrical aspect of Kiss made Kiss what they were.
Yeah.
Yes, the music. Yet, just imagine if Kiss did not wear costumes, did not do the pyrotechnics, did not have that anything, and just were an average hard rock band.
Yeah.
Do you think that they would be as famous? I don't.
No, and in fact, I mean, we got a little taste of that in the 80s. They were still kind of popular, but they weren't as popular. I mean, that's why, come 1995, they decided to put the makeup on, because the fans were kind of demanding that, and they're selling out even bigger and better shows. They're on what's supposed to be their farewell tour, so we will see. But what have you thought about Kiss all these years, with kind of Gene and Paul still there, Peter and Ace are no longer there, they've had different members in and out of the band?
Well, look, there's so many of these old-timey bands that have had so many changes.
Yeah.
However, for me, with Kiss, if I look at it, because I was there at a particular time in their history, it's sort of like, I'm not going to compare it to the Beatles, but what I'm saying, or the Stones, but if you replace those band members, is it the still band? Is it the same band still? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, the only thing I think that gives them kind of credit is... if you look at their long history, Gene and Paul have written most of the songs, they've sung most of the songs, and you can't deny, like you said, they're much more than a one-hit wonder band. I mean, so as songwriters, I think they got something going, but I'm with you as far as the original four. There's a special chemistry, and I've even heard Gene and Paul talk over the years. They think they modeled themselves after the Beatles. That was kind of their goal, to have a hard rock Beatles. And in fact, in the book, you talk about they're actually more popular than the Beatles in Japan, or they were. Yeah, which is kind of interesting.
They were.
Yeah. And then I was interested to read your kind of take on Paul, that you thought he was kind of not so much a narcissist. He was like a real friendly kind of soft. Because a lot of people now, they think, at least his persona, that he's arrogant and he talks down a lot about a lot of the band members and stuff. But I think that's just his persona, Paul Stanley, like if you ever hear him talk, like he's real opinionated. He kind of puts his opinion out there.
Well, I don't think having an opinion means you're a narcissist.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I really don't. I mean, I find I'm pretty opinionated, but
yeah.
And I don't think I'm a narcissist.
Okay, I get what you're saying. And then I mean, you seem to really like Peter, Chris, and Ace Frehley. Talk a little bit about them individually.
Well, I thought that Peter and Ace they reminded me more like of Ringo and George.
Okay, yeah.
You can see that, right?
Oh, yeah. And what's interesting is, if you know anything about Kiss history, is very early on, like, Ace wrote a lot of songs, but he didn't get to the point where like on the first 3 Kiss albums where he felt comfortable singing lead, so he would typically give his songs to either Gene or Peter to sing. And now if you've listened to any of the stuff he's released as a solo artist, he's much more confident as a singer.
Right.
And it's kind of interesting when they did those solo albums that Ace Frehley's was the most popular one.
Right.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I was kind of curious, what do you think about as far as them being so popular in Japan that they would not play again in Japan until 1988, almost 10 years later?
I don't really understand why they didn't go back.
Yeah.
Earlier than that.
Yeah.
Except look, maybe Bill Aucoin had a different idea. Maybe it was to continue to gain traction in America because they were losing popularity.
Yeah. And like in 1978, they released Double Platinum, which is their first greatest hits album. What's amazing is I think that's probably a great album all these years later, because that's still all the songs in the Kiss set list. I mean, you just go down the list, and those are the songs everybody wants to hear.
Right.
And I was curious, did you remain a Kiss fan after this experience? Did you continue to follow them?
Not really, no, because I was much more into punk.
Punk.
So, punk was my thing.
Okay. So who was your favorite punk band? I mean, that's probably a big question. But
at the time, it was, Sex Pistols, The Clash, The Cure, The Stranglers, Billy Idol, and I brought all those people over to Japan.
Oh,
but
wow.
that's book 2.
Okay, and did you ever see the Ramones live? I was curious.
In New York, I did, yes. Early days.
Yeah. It's sad that a lot of them have, pretty much the whole band's almost died out. And somebody's telling me that you could go see the Ramones back in the day, and you'd see like a whole concert like in 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing was also with Blondie. I saw Blondie at CBGB. I was totally not impressed.
Wow.
It was back in those days.
Wow. And Elise, I got to thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I'd love to have you back because there's so much we could talk about, and especially when book 2 drops. And the final thing I want to ask you about is your publicist, Michael. I mean, he's a cool guy in the fact that he used to be the publicist for Kiss and Britney Spears and all these other bands he works with. I love his podcast that you did an episode on. It's great what they do with that. Hello. I was saying, I was talking about your publicist Michael and the fact that you appeared on his podcast, and what a great episode that was.
Thank you.
And I was just curious because he used to be Kiss's publicist, and he's worked with Britney Spears and a lot of other great bands. How did you hook up with him? Through LinkedIn. Oh, how cool is that? And I got to tell people to look you up on Facebook because you were a very involved person online. And in fact, when I first made contact with you about setting up the interview today, you sent me a little thing. You have a mailing list and for things to keep in touch with you. So I think I love the fact that you're so much out there.
Thanks. Well, I would love for people to get the book if they're interested, and it's called Under My Skin, Drama, Trauma, and Rock and Roll, and it's available on Amazon. They can also follow me on Instagram, my name, Elise Krentzel. Maybe you'll need to spell that. Yeah,
it's Krentzel. We'll post it with the interview so people can have a link to that, and they can get it, like you said, on Amazon. And what's it like to be a best-selling author now?
I'm just amazed. My mouth is just like, what?
Yeah.
I'm just really happy that people can enjoy the book and also get a little bit more out of it than just enjoyment. Some other people are really relating to it personally for their things they went through when they were a kid.
Yeah, you know, 'cause, I think that's the most enjoyable thing about the book is, like I said, I initially, from seeing you on Michael's podcast, he'd send me a thing about who you were and about the book, and I said, hey, can we set up an interview with her? And in reading the book, what I find really interesting is, like, it's not like you're a famous person or anything, but like even just talking today, as you read the book, your personality comes alive in the book, and it's like I initially got it to read about the tour with Kiss, but it's so much more than that, and I think people will really love reading your life story here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm not a famous person. I was always behind the scenes. But whatever I did in life was behind the scenes. But I finally felt, and this is what COVID turned for me into one of the greatest years of my life, because other years weren't so great. COVID was good to me because I was able to write my book then. Yeah,
and you know, and the thing that makes this such a great story, I mean, and have you get out there and do these interviews like you're doing, it's one thing to have somebody else tell your story, but to be able to have a book or a vehicle like this where you can tell it in your own words, you know, I think that's really cool, and it's people can look for this as a way to kind of do something with their life. So thanks so much, Elise, and let's keep in touch, and I'd love to do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really had fun.
Yeah, so did I, and I could talk to you for hours, but I know you're busy as I am, so take care, Elise.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye, Jason.
Chaotic Riffs Magazine.